So I am excited to introduce our next presenters. This is Kristin Rossetti and Matthew Standridge from the Florida Museum of University of Florida, and they will be presenting Inspiring Curiosity Outreach Programs to Build Community. Kristin, as a conservationist coordinator for Jarrett Daniels Lab in the Florida Museum, she helps manages the lab's over 25 active projects. They are currently working in 9 imperiled taxa, including captive rearing work for 5 of these species. She also organizes the lab's many public outreach events, and as far as a favorite animal to see is all of them. So please welcome Kristin and Matthew. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having us. My name is Matt Standridge, and this is Kristin Rossetti. We are from the Daniels Lab, which is at the Florida Museum of Natural History. So our lab is primarily focused on the conservation of rare, our lab is primarily focused on the conservation of rare and threatened leps, mainly in Florida. We're currently working with 10 different taxa, and we have many other active research programs. So we do a lot of captive rearing in the lab, a lot of butterfly surveys, habitat assessments, and we also do a lot of work in right-of-ways, suburban and urban areas, and roadsides. Where our lab is located is attached to the public part of the museum, so we're always on display. We have a big window at the front of our lab, and that's generally populated with lots of native insects, because a lot of what the work that we do is too small to really be seen by the public, so we have those to give people something to look at other than us messing around with bugs. Something that is not pictured there, but is a really popular feature, is a small Caterpie Pokemon figurine that is really neat. You can't hear great through the window, but I do hear a lot of people exclaim when they see the Caterpie, and it's the age range is from like 5 to 45. So it's really multi-generational with the Caterpie figurine. All right, so why do we do outreach? To improve the public perception of insects. As you guys know, unfortunately, there's still a lot of people that have negative views on insects, and we want to change that. And a great way to do that is with like large, charismatic bugs. Slow moving is very important, I think. A lot of people are fine if they're not moving quickly, but as soon as they jump or scuttle, that can really freak them out. Some of the more popular ones are like saturnid larvae and lubbers. Those two are fantastic. They're usually a really big hit with the general public. They like those because, yeah, they're cute, squishy, and don't move fast. So once we can get people comfortable with the insects, we use that as a jumping off point to motivate their behavior. We encourage them to do things like planting pollinator garden in their yard, or using less pesticides, less herbicides, things like that, and even like just not mowing a section of your yard to see what kind of native plants might grow there and if those can be beneficial to pollinators. So giving people less work is actually a pretty easy thing to do. So we do a lot of outreach at the museum specifically. Some of the public events we do there is up here you can see is the LEP camp that we ran for about 5 years, and that was focused on middle-aged school children during the summer. It was a very popular program, consistently filled up each time we offered it. And we would bring the kids out to a large natural area behind the museum and let them collect bugs, and they would learn about bugs and pin butterflies and other insects. And a lot of those kids actually came back several years in a row, and some of them have gone on to become junior volunteers at the museum, and one even asked us recently for a letter of recommendation so that she could start working at the USDA, working with insects. Over here we have the Florida wildflower day, and this was in the middle of Florida summer, so we didn't know what the turnout was going to be. And it turned out we had over 150 people come from the community to help us plant over 6,000 plugs of native plants. It was really impressive. We were very surprised by that many people coming and showing up and helping. And down here, we have the Girls Do Science, which is an annual program that the museum puts on where we feature all of the women that work at the museum and where they can showcase their research and what they're doing at the museum. Another really popular program. In 2023, over 1,800 people showed up to come see what we were doing there. In addition to working directly at the museum, we also have a lot of community partners that we work with. And this is, again, a very popular program that we have where we teach people how to pin butterflies at the local library. It's another one that within minutes of it being posted on the library's website has completely filled up each time. And this is another great one. We bring some live insects, usually like the big Saturniid caterpillars, so get people comfortable with them again. And we hand out pamphlets that have, they're more of a field guide than a pamphlet, and some other stuff that teaches them, native plants that they can plant in their yards. And it's just another really good outreach program that we have. Before I talk about this one, there's one slide that we don't have slides for it because it's at the Shands Children's Hospital. And this is a large hospital in Gainesville. We do the same thing that we do with other outreach programs where we bring a bunch of bug and bug associated things to the Children's Hospital for the inpatient program that they have there. And it's really, really great. We don't get a lot of numbers there, but it's probably one of the most meaningful. It's usually just a few kids, sometimes even just one-on-one. But these are kids that have been in the hospital for, months sometimes, and understandably very bored. So we bring them live insects, and so far every one of them has had an absolute blast. They love it. They really enjoy getting some stuff from the outside brought into them, because a lot of them can't even leave the hospital. But this is at Baby Gator. Baby Gator is the daycare center that UF runs. And when we do this, there are over 100 kids split up into 6 different classes. Even with kids of this age, they're still really, really engaged. We go around to the different classes, hang out with bugs. Some kids are definitely terrified when we walk in with the lubbers. They see these large crawling things, and we've had kids crying at first, but then by the end, they want them to crawl up their arm, and it's really cool to see that transition from straight up fear to like wanting to see how many bugs they can hold at one time. We've been doing outreach here for years, and I am very proud to say that with the hundreds or potentially thousands of people we've interacted with, we've never had a bug die due to even really, really small children handling them. You can see over there, we even work with the 12 to 18 months old. So it's good to set up some ground rules on how to touch things, show them how to do it. Nobody has ever squished a bug. They've come close before, but never actually gotten any. And to see a kid, initially be repulsed by like a hickory horndevil caterpillar and then, want to hold them is pretty great. And these are all just really, really fun outreach events that we participate in there. And here's Kristin.
So we like to do different fun, creative activities that will engage the public and get them excited about insects. And so Jarrett heard from a colleague who I believe is here at the conference, had done a butterfly-themed beer. And he thought, wow, that's a really cool idea. We like butterflies in beer too. So we approached a brewery in 2016 that's in our hometown of Gainesville, Florida, called First Magnitude Brewery. So this brewery has a strong environmental mission. Their name stands for a First Magnitude Springs, and they fund conservation work in springs. So we thought, oh, this is a perfect fit. So Jared approached them, and in 2016, we started our Beers for Conservation initiative. So since that time, we've held 14 events and launched 15 different butterfly-themed beers. And one fun fact is that 2 of the beers that we brewed, the Calamintha Blue Bee beer and the Frosted Elfin beer, were both brewed with yeast collected directly from the target organism. So we went out into the field, we captured the butterfly or bee, we swabbed it with a Q-tip, took the yeast back to the lab, and then they isolated the different strains, found the one that was most flavorsome, and then brewed a beer out of it. So that actually got a lot of traction in the media. I believe that's the first time anyone's done anything like that, and it was just lots of fun. So early on in these events, Jarrett was like, we like plants too. Why don't we give away plants at the event? So we also started adding plant giveaways when we do these beer events. So here are some pictures of the events that we do at First Magnitude. Live insects are always a huge draw. We have wonderful guests and really solid conversations. And we've kind of built a community within our community where we have people repeatedly coming back to our events. They like to collect the merchandise that we occasionally sell. We'll do t-shirts or cups based on the label for the beer. And it's wonderful to go out into the community and meet people where they are. And we just love these events and decided to build on them. So we were doing these plant giveaways, and we knew that some of the plants were getting planted, and even the ones that weren't getting planted would be resources for pollinators while they were alive. But how many of the plants were getting planted, and where were they getting planted? So we decided to tweak these events and add an initiative. So we ask people now to pick up their free plant, to plant it, to take a picture of it planted, and then email the picture to us along with their name and address by a certain date. And then in exchange, we mail them the incentive, which in this case was a ticket to the Butterfly Rainforest, which is a live butterfly exhibit at the Florida Museum. And we're also doing free tickets for other exhibits and things like that. So one super cool thing about this is that we also decided to provide a little more information about the plants we were giving away to people. So now when we do these events, they're usually some are at First Mag and some are at pop-ups out in the community where people are. And we have little fact sheets about each plant, and we talk to our attendees to ask them about the conditions they have in their yard. Is it dry? Is it wet? Is it sunny? Is it shady? And then we help them choose a plant that's appropriate for their landscape so that when they plant it, it'll survive and they'll feel successful, because no one likes to plant a plant and watch it die. And we were thankful to receive additional funding to continue these plant giveaways. So people had so much fun with their pictures. They went way above and beyond the minimum. We had people bringing their entire extended families to these events so that they could leave with 8 plants rather than 1. We had Boy Scout troops, as you can see a picture of a couple of them there. We had a lot of people sending us pictures showing wildlife engaging with the plants after they were installed. And we were just really impressed at the direction that people took this. They didn't just do it to get the incentive. They did it because they were excited about planting the plant and they believed in what we were doing. So one super cool thing about the incentive program is since we got people's addresses, we were able to map the plant submissions. So these are a picture of Gainesville, Florida, which is our hometown, and every point on this map is a plant that we gave away that someone planted. So we were really impressed at the excellent distribution throughout our town. We did try to go to different areas to make sure we were getting a broad swath of the community, but we were pretty surprised that it was this well distributed. And we were also surprised at how far some people traveled for a plant. So the spots in the south there, that's about 2 hours away from where we live. So that's pretty far to pick up a free plant. So we are considering in the future, in tweaking our program's messaging to kind of increase the response rate. Currently, we have about a 20% response rate, which is pretty solid, but we think maybe if we made a more direct pitch to people to explain what we were trying to do, we might get an even better turnout. So that's up for the future. And then this summer, we also helped develop an exhibit for the Florida Museum called Incredible Insects. So the Florida Museum recently decided that instead of just paying for traveling exhibits, they also wanted to feature work that was being done at the Florida Museum, which is called Science Up Close. So they started with fantastic fossils, and we were the second installation, Incredible Insects. So we collaborated with the University of Florida Entomology Department and the Florida Museum of Natural History exhibits, graphics, and a bunch of other departments to develop this exhibit. It provides visitors with basic entomological information, a little primer on taxonomy. We've got a little section on entomophagy. We've got an interactive light trapping sheet so people can see what it's like to collect insects at night. There's a magic eye microscope where visitors can look at frass and exuviae and head capsules and specimens super up close. There's a little library, and then down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's also a 300-degree immersive experience that shows super magnified pictures of bugs with some light music playing behind it. And that has actually been really neat to see. I'm very impressed with how that all turned out, and mostly because we got wonderful images from partners. But the biggest hit of this exhibit is absolutely, hands down, the Bug Zoo. So this exhibit was initially planned for the winter, but thankfully we got them to delay it to the May through September period, which is much more conducive for insects in Florida. So all of the insects that populate the Bug Zoo were collected locally. Our lab did a lot of that. And we definitely have a LEP-heavy exhibit because we are lepidopterists, but we also have a ton of other cool insects. We have 3 different species of mantids. We had a mantis fly, the lubber grasshoppers. People have very strong reactions to those, so it's nice to let people meet them on neutral ground. They can kind of appreciate them a little more than when they're defoliating plants in their garden. And what else? We had ant lions, wheel bugs, lots of garden pests so that people can identify those and kind of notice the unique beauty of them when they're not eating something that you're trying to grow. And everything that we have on display is ID'd with a nice label that provides the name, the scientific name, food, habitat requirements, and a fun fact about the insects. And care for the insects is shared by 4 or 5 people over the 3-month run of the exhibit. So the Bug Zoo has been a lot of fun, and it's been wonderful to watch people just spend like a half hour hanging out watching the bugs. I've had at least 3 visitors that I've talked to tell me that they were only in town for a couple days, but that their children demanded that they come back every day to come see this exhibit. So I think that's a pretty big compliment. And another really big hit of the exhibit is the live lab. So this is a place where visitors can come and watch entomologists doing the work that they do. They can talk to them, they can ask questions. And over on the left, I'm sorry, it's a really terrible picture, but that's a list of like 18 to 20 different labs from the University of Florida Entomology Department and the McGuire Center. And we also had USDA come and a couple other people, FDAC, Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. Anyone who works with bugs, we invited to come. So labs rotate in every 1 to 2 weeks. They get the opportunity to bring whatever they do outreach with and the work that they're doing currently, share it with visitors. And these pictures are from when the Daniels lab, our lab, was in the live lab. And we actually had the top 2 pictures are us engaging with visitors and showing them the endangered Schaus's swallowtail, which was being captively bred in our lab at the time. So this is an organism that like almost no one is going to have the opportunity to see in the wild. But everyone who got to come to the exhibit those days got to see it. So that was lots of fun. And so essentially it's a different exhibit every week. So you could come every week in the summer, chill out in the cool because it's very hot in Florida, and talk with urban entomology, the honeybee lab, ant labs, people who study mosquitoes. I mean, just basically every permutation of entomology is represented in this exhibit. And then finally, we do offer a reduced rate for EBT card holders to visit Incredible Insects, but we wanted to make sure that cost wasn't prohibitive for people to get to see some incredible insects this summer. So Alachua County Public Library had reached out to us. They're a wonderful partner because 2 of their librarians were interested in having a Lepidoptera exhibit. So we said, wow, what a coincidence. That's kind of what we're doing this summer. So we took 1 species at a time from the bug zoo and we brought it over to them. We talked through life cycle and host plant requirements and made sure that they felt comfortable. We check in with them a couple times a week. So they were rearing 1 species at a time. And I have a video, but I've run out of time to play it. But we gave them cool stuff. There's head capsules and pupil cases and just things that people might not normally get to see. But then when they do see it, they're like, oh, that's really interesting. Maybe I've seen that before. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed a flavor of the outreach programs that the Daniels Lab does. I wanted to thank our whole lab. We couldn't do what we do without everyone. And then I've got a variety of our partners and funders up there. And yeah, thank you all so much.